Hello, everyone, and welcome to our woodland walk. And it is a great pleasure to have Alesha Wells, soon to be Dr. Alesha Wells, just handed in her thesis, to come to speak to us. Thank you so much, Alesha, for being here. I'm going to do a quick introduction and then pass over to you. So I'll just describe a little bit the way our paths have crossed. So Alesha is part of a team at the University of Auckland. She's in the health psychology bit or the psychological medicine bit. Were you in the
Yeah, it's a subset of psych med. Yeah.
in the health psychology department? And Alesha was part of a team who contacted me a couple of years ago now to say that they were doing a study, and Alesha's going to tell us about these two studies, and that they were looking to use the WCS connectedness measure because it seemed to speak to themes that were important to the Maori model of health and well-being, which is called Te Whare Tapawha, which Alesha is going to tell us about. And I was really thrilled to hear about the link between the two, connectedness work and this Maori model of health and well-being. But their team pointed out that I had missed two very important items off the connectedness scale and that they needed to be included for them to be relevant. And so we can talk about the items in a bit, but that's how our paths have crossed. That your team we had these really interesting meetings. It was wonderful to meet you all and hear from you all. And now Alesha's back at the point where the first study is completed, the second study is kind of on its way, and Alesha was here to tell us a bit about her journey, her work, and the findings so far from these studies. So, Alesha, thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you, Ros, for the introduction. Yeah, so I am, as you say, I've just handed in my PhD. I'm based in the Department of Psychological Medicine under the umbrella of health psychology at the University of Auckland in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So I'm now moving on as well to my clinical training in health psychology. So that's kind of my next step. But yes, this work has been sort of growing, I suppose, for 4 years. And part of it started stepping into the PhD and speaking with my supervisor about her existing interest in psychedelics. So she had started some work in the field looking at perceptions of psychedelics and wanted to move into the clinical trial space. And fortunately, there was this really wonderful project that I was able to get involved in. And I will talk a little bit about that. I'll just introduce it briefly for context. So it was a feasibility trial looking at LSD microdosing assisted meaning-centered psychotherapy for people with an advanced stage cancer diagnosis. So looking at targeting that existential distress associated with end of life. And from that, I learned about your scale and your work that you've been doing, which was really interesting and exciting because I saw a lot of overlap not only with Māori models of health, but also with physical health conditions and the experience that people have with those. So your work kind of grew from that mental health space, people with treatment-resistant depression, as I recall, and whereas mine was focused in the physical health field. So we wanted to essentially understand a little bit more about a sense of connectedness and what it meant for people with a physical health condition. And we also wanted to make sure that the scale that we were using was relevant for our population here in Aotearoa. And all of the work that I've been doing and a lot of the work that my supervisor, Lisa Reynolds, had been doing had a health equity focus. So looking at indigenous health equity for our population, our indigenous population here, Māori. So yeah, so that's kind of where we the overview, I suppose. Feel free to direct me.
No, this is, I mean, just so that's a beautiful bit of background. And
Mm.
will you tell us a little bit about, well, I mean, maybe if you could tell us a little bit about the group of you first, because you've been working
Yeah.
alongside Aotearoa and Eva. Maybe you could talk about their role in the kind of setting of the scene, and then tell us a bit more about what the studies found.
Perfect. Yeah. So Lisa Reynolds, my primary supervisor, she is also a practicing clinical health psychologist. I'm also co-supervised by Dr. Suresh Muthukumaraswamy, who has a lot of experience in this field, in the psychedelic field. And through Lisa's clinical work, she developed relationships with Eva Moringa, who's a Māori clinical health psychologist, who came on to be a cultural advisor on my PhD. And our network grew and our connection with Hiniatua Parkinson also developed. And she's a lecturer in the Department of Psychology at Auckland University as well. So both of these wonderful Māori wahine um, became quite involved in my PhD work and in supporting me, not only with my research, but also with my own connection to whakapapa. So throughout the PhD, it was kind of an opportunity for me to reflect on my own Māori genealogy, whakapapa. And they kind of were really wonderful supporters in that, and gave me space to walk along that path without just being that supportive hand, I think, which was really valuable. And so they came on board and we spoke about the connectedness scale, had conversations about how it might be used here, and kind of the elements that were present and important, but also some elements for our Māori population that were missing. So that was kind of the combination in us adapting
Mm.
as we did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe at this point we can talk about those two items. So I remember this call so well because I really remember I was really struck by just it was quite profound actually that first meeting because I was struck so much by the way the way everybody introduced themselves. So obviously in a kind of like it was there was this beautiful um rather than just saying this is my name, there was the this is my land, these are my ancestors, this is where I'm from. It was this relational, deeply connected to community and to ancestry and to land way of introducing yourself, which I just thought it was, I mean, it spoke to the model of connectedness so deeply. So I really remember that. But then also in the meeting, yeah, it was also quite profound to hear about and to reflect on these two items. So there was the two items that I remember. I think it was at the time it was Eva that kind of described it to me, and I remember just the power of her description as well. Um, and the two items that we'd missed is I feel connected to my ancestors, and I feel connected to my whenua, which is land as placenta. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even now, it brings tears to my eyes. Like it's so moving to me. Like the fact that we missed it out feels so relevant, like feels so significant about Western culture, because I feel that in Western culture we have lost our connection to our ancestry and our land as placenta. But maybe you could talk a bit more about those two, the importance of those two items.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I mean, for me, it's a newer space as well. So I only started really deep diving, I suppose, into Te Ao Māori at the beginning of my PhD. I was not brought up in Te Ao Māori in the Māori worldview. So it was really also beneficial and nourishing for me to learn from Eva and Hiniatua and their lived cultural experience. But yes, these two items. So to maybe paint the picture a little bit better, I might just talk about the Māori model of health first, just to give a bit more context. So I suppose within Māori culture, health is viewed a lot more holistically rather than kind of biomedical models or limited disease and symptom. It's much more holistic than that, and it encompasses a lot more, which I will delve into. So Te Whare Tapawhā is it's the four-sided house, and essentially it consists of four key aspects of health and well-being. And these are taha wairua, so spirituality, taha hinenaro, so mental well-being, taha tinana, so physical well-being, and taha whānau, which is family and friends. And of course, the house sits on the foundation, which is the whenua, the land. Now, I think I don't know if I can do justice to this model as much as, say, Hiniatua or Eva might, but it frames and colors the way people look or interpret their health and wellness. And in Māori culture, it's incredibly relational. It is the way people locate themselves in the world and in space and in relation to each other is understanding where they come from, which the land they're from, and the genealogical connections that they have. And that sort of, there's such a richness to that way of connecting to each other that I think is, can be missing, I think, from some Western cultures. And Wairua, that spirituality, I'm not sure if maybe the way I understand it is the way everyone understands it. And maybe people have different connections to Wairua. But for me, I never kind of described myself as anyone who was spiritual. But learning about this, it's for me feeling connected to my land and the place that I am. And yeah, I think sorry, now I'm just rambling, but it's a really
No, it's beautiful. Continue down that road. I mean, this is a woodland walk ramble. The rambling's the whole point. Tell us more about that. That sounds really beautiful. Yeah, the spirituality of the land that you're on. I mean, yes, process for you, because I suppose throughout these whole years of this work, this has been a huge personal journey for you in terms of connecting with your own ancestry. So, and your own land. So yeah, tell us a bit more about that. If you want to. You don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, I think cultural identity is always an interesting one. And in Aotearoa, those with Māori whakapapa, they are Māori, or they have, they have that connection. And I think, it was really valuable to have the support, I think, of Eva and Hiniatua in pushing me to realize that I can have a place. And the reasons why I want to pursue this sort of work is for the benefit of my community. So I won't go too much more into that, but
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah. So the group has this mix of people from different perspectives. There's this understanding of the house with four sides and the land and the importance of that model. And so from that understanding within your department, and that being the model of health for the Maori community, when you started thinking about this study, you needed a measure. We had the chat. We decided that the WCS could be adapted with these additions of these two items. I feel connected to my ancestors and I feel connected to my land, whenua, placenta. And then you went off and you did the study, and now you're back to tell us about the study and your findings. There were two studies. There was a survey study, and then there's the microdosing trial. Tell us a bit about what you've been finding.
Yeah, so the survey study, let me just have a sip of water, was aiming to understand a little bit more about sense of connectedness and its relationship with existential distress in a sample of people with a life-limiting illness. So the microdosing study that I mentioned before is specifically advanced stage cancer, whereas we kept this a little bit broader, primarily for recruitment purposes, but also just to understand its relevance in a physical health setting. So we included a range of different measures. Our primary existential distress measure was the demoralization scale. So that kind of construct kind of speaks to feelings of sort of hopelessness or helplessness or loss of meaning, or a sense of failure or incompetence. And it's unfortunately can be common for people with a life-limiting illness who are facing those really big existential questions about their life and prognosis and moving forward. So we thought, based on the literature, that a sense of connectedness might act as a protective factor, perhaps. So we wanted to look at that relationship. So there are a few different aims, but essentially high-level findings would be that, as one would expect, greater sense of connectedness was associated with lower existential distress in the sample. We did look at differences between that relationship between Māori and non-Māori, and we found no differences. So connectedness has a cross-cultural relevance, which I think is really fantastic and important because, of course, connection, you can see its utility for everyone, right? And we also looked at the relationship between physical symptom frequency and demoralization. So people who tend to have higher symptoms often have higher levels of demoralization. That's a relatively consistent relationship that's been found. And we wanted to understand whether sense of connectedness would moderate that relationship in any way. So we looked at the 3 subscales, and we actually did find a relationship with the connectedness to world subscale. So this is the very more spiritual subscale, and these I've kind of gone back to front actually because I didn't talk about our exploratory factor analysis with the new items, but I can come back to that.
Yes, I haven't heard about that yet. That's very interesting too. But yes,
hard to get it all straight, but essentially we found that for people with high connectedness to world, the kind of relationship between physical symptoms and demoralization was blunted a little bit. So it did seem to be protective to some degree, which is really positive, and it's, I suppose, encouraging in the sense that, you know, using existential themed interventions for people going through these challenges are likely to have, I mean, benefit. And perhaps it might be have utility as kind of a risk screen as well, understanding there might be some relationships in terms of trajectory of distress. So understanding connectedness to world or connectedness to other things might indicate where someone might go in their journey of wellness. Yeah.
World is a funny title, isn't it? Because we thought for a really long time, do we call it connectedness to world, or should it be like connectedness to universe? Because it's kind of, it's as you say, it's the kind of spiritual scale. It goes beyond the human. So yes, I suppose the connectedness to world, the title is a bit misleading, but this deep connection it includes connection to nature, and it includes a sense of kind of connection to global humanity and a source of love, like it's connection to love as well, isn't it, as a force? So yeah, I can see why that would be a strong connection to those things would be really protective in terms of that symptom experience being so distressing without that link to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I guess now, like for the exploratory factor analysis, we did maintain most of the items included in your scale, but those final items, whenua and whakapapa, were included in the final connectedness world subscale. But they actually ended up kind of replacing a couple of items. So it
Hey,
ended, yeah, so I'd have to actually go back to my notes for this one. So
I've got
we
my pen and paper to write it down. This is so
Yeah.
the
I
research
think
is
we'll have to
deep.
delve into this in more
Yeah,
detail, perhaps in the
yeah.
next discussion.
Okay,
But
we'll go into the next discussion, but like, wow, I can't wait to hear. Yes.
yeah, but yeah, in the end, I think that became because whenua encapsulates. I think we lost connected to nature, perhaps, but
Mhm.
whenua in many ways encapsulates both this connection to land in a natural sense, but of course in a spiritual sense. So it became quite
Mm.
yeah, a very spiritual subscale, which is yeah, quite beautiful. Um yeah, but then in terms of the other study that we were talking about, so this trial was just a feasibility trial. So we weren't powered, we didn't have enough people to look at effect of the LSD microdosing. But I think so we didn't end up finding any group differences, but we did get a lot of really rich qualitative data, and we also I think have a little bit more analysis to do with the Watts connectedness scale. So we've only looked at it as a full score, as a full subscale. Sorry, as a full scale score, as opposed to in
Right.
isolation of the subscale. So I think there's some further investigation that will be
Mm.
valuable there. Um, but yeah, one of I think there's just such a beautiful well, synergy between meaning-centered psychotherapy and what psychedelics are sort of intended
Mhm.
to do, and the effects that they're hoping to have. So yeah, so that was it was a multi-year process of running that trial. And we did we met our recruitment target for non-Māori, but unfortunately we didn't quite meet the recruitment target for Māori. So we wanted
You
to
wanted to
have,
have half and half, didn't you? Yeah.
yeah, we did, yeah. So equal explanatory power for both groups. Um, and that was disappointing, I think, for the team. And we're doing a lot of work now to understand why. And yeah, kind of a watch the space for that one.
Mm.
But we do hope to publish some reflections
Yeah.
on that. Yeah.
And so I just have two questions for you about that, if it's okay. Like one, the first,
Mm.
um, from the qualitative data and from the kind of participants that did go through, do you have a kind of gut sense that that LSD at that stage of life was bringing in something, even though you didn't see group differences because of the sample size and recruitment challenges? Would you say that overall you felt like from the qualitative data that you got that this was an avenue worth future exploration?
Mm. I think it is quite hard to tell because meaning-centered psychotherapy on its own has such significant benefit.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, when they were sharing their experience in the trial, had a lot of trouble discerning what was having that effect. We, in terms of blinding, our LSD group maintained blinding, whereas the placebo group didn't. So they guessed placebo more frequently than otherwise. And I think for some of them there was an element of disappointment that they weren't receiving something. But
Mm.
interestingly as well, there were, I think for some people, there were higher expectations of felt effect, like in terms of noticing LSD, than what actually came through. So I don't know if I could I don't know if I could say definitively from the qualitative data. But a lot of the people talking about changes in connection, that was definitely evident in terms of connecting with other people, noticing the things around them and taking enjoyment from that in ways that they didn't before, which is of course reflective of other findings. Yeah. I want to do a further analysis of the qualitative data. We were looking at it primarily for our primary outcomes, which were safety, feasibility, and acceptability, with some, exploratory analysis in terms of effect. But I think there's more to be kind of understood from it. Yeah, microdosing as opposed to high dose, I think it's certainly there's further work I think that needs to be done, to understand that. Yeah. Now I'm just realizing that it's as you're growing lighter, I'm growing darker.
Yes.
Because the room that I'm in, it's not my room, it's
We can still do absolutely fine. So if it's all good. We're just, I love the fact that we've been going in opposite light, because we're literally, I think it's 7 p.m., 7:45 p.m. for you, 7:45 a.m. for me. And we are the complete, we're going in the other directions likewise. But can I ask you one more question before you still light completely and mine is too bright? My final question is, and it maybe touches on slightly what you were saying about the kind of recruitment difficulties with the Maori sample. And I was just wondering around indigenous plant medicine use in Maori populations, and how, and any just a couple of little, anything. I mean, we've talked about this before in our previous calls, but just for people listening, just I think what people will be wondering around attitudes to psychedelics in kind of modern clinical trials versus plant medicine use in cultural tradition.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So as far as I'm aware, there's no written record of Māori traditionally using psychedelics, but it's quite likely that it was common in traditional use. We have endemic species of psilocybin-containing mushroom here in Aotearoa, and Māori traditionally use other psychoactive plants in their in traditional practice and ronga practice. We have done a little bit of research looking at perceptions of psychedelics. I really wish I turned the light on.
Can you up the brightness? Can you up the brightness of your screen? Because then it will give you a bit more.
Perhaps. Yeah, good idea. Oh, maybe not. I'll turn my phone light on.
Oh yeah, perfect. That gives you a nice glow. Beautiful. Angelic.
Okay. Yeah, so we did do some research looking at perceptions of psychedelics, and one of the interesting findings I think from that was there is a bit of a divide in how some Māori, of course, this was a small qualitative sample, perceive synthetic compounds as opposed to compounds that come from the earth, come from the land. And I think that's really important consideration. And it's a consideration that some colleagues of mine are actually looking into. So the Tū Wairoa project is a really, really beautiful project, Māori-led project that is looking at developing a marae-based intervention, so cultural meeting house for methamphetamine addiction using psilocybin, and hopefully they'll be able to find a way to cultivate mushrooms that have more kind of even dosing of psilocybin, because that's a challenge in
Yeah.
research if we want to kind of control dosage. So yeah, that's a really exciting development
Yes. Wow.
here. And yeah, I'll have to let the colleagues responsible probably delve into that a little bit more than me, maybe in the future, maybe on a
Yes.
future
Yes, please
treecast,
put them all.
but
Yes, yes. Oh, wow. That is yeah, that is really quite that's an amazing sounding project. I'll definitely look for some links for that. Um, but I don't want to take up any more of your time. You've had a long day in your clinical placement, and I really appreciate the time you've taken. Um, I have a million other questions, but we'll save them for our next chat. And
fantastic.
yeah, you've done such important work, and I think this is a really beautiful. You've done it with such care, and you found so many important things. And this is the beginning of yeah, this pathway, I suppose now, and learning more around yeah this the connectedness, and also thinking about psychedelics as part of this Maori model of health, the four-sided house. Um, yeah, I'm just looking forward to learning more in the future. So when we see how
Mm.
two models can weave together even more. But yeah, thank you, and good luck with your defending your thesis in the spring. Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. It was lovely to speak, lovely to talk. And yeah, I will see you in December.
Yes. So
Mm.
yes, so Alicia's going to be with us in December for our Q&A, which is the third week of December, and we're going to be chatting around all of this. So any questions, yeah, you might be having listening to this, and save them up for December. So,
And I
well,
promise I'll have adequate lighting for that one.
all good. I love our polarity of different lighting. Oh, thank you, Alicia. And take some time for relaxing as well after all hard work. I hope you can have some fun as well, and some good time off.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and see you soon. Thanks everyone for listening. Bye bye. Oh, and also just to quickly say, we will put links to some of the things we've been talking about, because sometimes spelling is very different to how it sounds as well. So people might be struggling to Google things. So we will put links to, for example, to Whare Tapiwha and things like that into onto the platform underneath this conversation. Yeah. So if people want to learn more, you can follow the links. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Alicia. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.